All right, let's bring the meeting to Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee to order. We have for item number 1. This says potential delegation, but no. So the report's there, correct? And it's been moved by Councillor Galloway-Sealock. There are no questions. Oh, Councillor Fernandez, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the report on page 1-1. It talks about the City of Cambridge and the 3 regions townships have passed similar resolutions. How similar are their resolutions? Are they exactly the same, or are they like what's the differences?
Mr. Bernard.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I don't have the exact wording of those resolutions before me, but when I looked at them, they seemed basically similar. And they all have the same intent, and that is that all of the area municipalities mentioned are pursuing the approval of planning approvals that are now carried out by the region. They all want to pursue them, and they're all doing it in a 2-step fashion. They're asking their councils to give them direction, and they will report back once they've completed their analysis.
Okay. So there's one paragraph on page 1-2, and it starts with, it is noted that obtaining approval authority for official plan amendments is more complicated and less certain compared with other planning approvals mentioned in this report. If my understanding here is that official plan amendments are more complicated, we are being asked to approve delegated authority for that. Why would we be approving delegated authority for something that's more complicated? Shouldn't then it be coming to council for oversight?
Okay, through you, Mr. Chairman, I think there's a miscommunication in the way that is worded. The process for obtaining that approval and securing it for the City of Kitchener or all of the area municipalities is more complicated because there aren't enabling regulations. There are enabling provincial regulations to obtain those approvals at the lower tier level. So the complication is in the process, and there's no guarantee that we would be able to secure that approval of authority. But if council is supportive of pursuing it, we would do that. And we would approach the province and see if they would first be supportive of changing the legislation. And then secondly, we would then report back with our findings as to whether it's a good thing or not.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wilmer, do you want to add more?
So just to add to that, I think just to be clear, we want to make sure council understands we're not talking about delegating to staff. We're talking about delegating to the city. So the decision would still be council's decision. The difference would be that decision is final other than appeals to the OMB. It wouldn't need to go through an extra step of going to the region.
Okay.
So it's to our benefit.
Okay.
Councillor Janetsky?
Well, the clarification of Mr. Wilmer was just answered my question.
Good. In that case, all in favor? Item has been moved. Opposed? And that carries. Item number 2, the Kitchener Market Strategy. We have a staff report. Ms. Ferry? Hi, Kim.
Good afternoon, Chair Singh. Hello, Mayor and Councillor members. I am pleased to present the Kitchener Market Strategy for your approval as a guiding document showcasing the direction we wish to take the market over the next 4 to 5 years. Upon your approval, we would develop a detailed business plan. Since 2011, we have enjoyed significant customer growth in all areas of our business, including the Saturday Market, International Food Court, and the Marketplace Kitchen, which encompasses cooking classes, camps, events, and rentals. As you can see, our Kitchener, City of Kitchener customers come from more than just the surrounding neighborhoods of the market and actually are well represented throughout the city. Our consultation process started last year, where we solicited the opinions of over 3,000 participants through a variety of forums. When we asked our participants what they liked best about the Kitchener market, we heard responses referencing things like fairest prices, variety, diversity, high quality artisan foods, tradition, community, and supporting local farmers and producers. Overall, community was the dominant theme of our conversations. The citizens felt that the market was a place to connect with people, share experiences, and develop relationships. Supporting this vision are three themes. One is to support a vibrant food culture. 2, grow and strengthen our market, the role of our market as an urban public market. And 3, to become a catalyst for the food industry. In reference to goal number 1, the Kitchener market will always be about food and its legacy for 147 years. It's been offering access to affordable, local, nutritious food. An overwhelming majority of responses to our online survey, and that was 90%, indicated that the Kitchener market provides access to good quality fresh food. In addition, 80% felt shopping at the Kitchener market built trusting relationships between the vendors and the customers. The public has embraced Saturday market, and what we heard is that they want to have more market days. Our consultation process revealed that 60% of the respondents would visit the Kitchener market more often if a farmer's market was offered 1 or 2 more days per week between May and October. What I will add is that additional feedback through other mediums expressed that they were also interested in an evening market during the weekday. Now turning to goal number 2, the market is about more than just business transactions. It's about the experience at the market and the atmosphere that it provides. It's a place for community life events, shopping rituals, cooking classes, and holiday celebrations. It is an inclusive, welcoming public space for all members of our community. People want to see the piazza animated, and we know there is an opportunity to enhance this huge outdoor space and make it more inviting so it improves the overall market experience. This will also include better signage of the Kitchener market closer to the road on King Street, as well as banners lining Cedar Street from the new Kitchener Market LRT stop. This will build on community pride as downtown becomes more accessible with the LRT. Now, what is going to set us apart from other markets is our goal to become a catalyst for the food industry. This is a relatively new role for the market that ties back to the Make It Kitchener strategy. Employment data shows low representation in the culinary industry in our region, which is surprising given the strength of the Conestoga College culinary program. We believe there may be a lost opportunity as grads are leaving the region. We've heard as well about a lack of test kitchen facilities. Culinary workers need to develop their products and skills just like any other startup, but face challenges with capital costs and the need of a health-inspected kitchen. We can leverage our Marketplace Kitchen facility to support these workers. We have relationships with the Small Business Centre, with Conestoga College, local chefs, food vendors, farmers, culinary workers, so we feel we're in a good position to facilitate. The Kitchener Market can be a catalyst for economic growth in the food culture beyond just the traditional market, contributing to the greater economy of Kitchener-Waterloo. With respect to implementation, areas identified for future growth are to increase the marketplace rentals and cooking classes, continue building Oktoberfest, and offering a second market day. This will allow us to leverage investments made in the Kitchener Market facility, light rail transit, and downtown revitalization. This concludes the formal presentation, and I open the floor to any comments or questions.
Yeah, there are some questions. Councillor Marsh?
Thank you, Chair Singh. Thank you, Kim, for the presentation. This is an exciting strategic plan. I just want to ask you, you mentioned near the beginning of your presentation that this is for about 4 to 5 years. Do you have a time frame that you're thinking specifically? Is it 2017 to 2020 or 21?
For sure, this would, based on it being approved, it would launch and probably run till about 2021.
Okay, great. And so also you kind of mentioned how old the market is, and I didn't realize that we're going to be celebrating 150 years in 2019. So is that going to be part of your work plan in 2019 to somehow mark that occasion?
Yes, we definitely have that earmarked to do a 150 years celebration of actually having a municipal market building.
Okay, fantastic. Well, at the appropriate time, I'd like to move this motion.
Sure, I'll come back to you. Councillor Ioannidis?
Thanks, Chair Singh. Thank you, Kim, for your presentation. I guess my question is in regards to the implementation of, let's say, another day at the market. When do you foresee that happening, and what needs would you need from us to give you support in that for that additional day?
I see it definitely. First of all, we'd have to go back and conduct a stakeholder engagement and talk to the citizens to find out exactly what that second day market looks like. Because right now, we got some great data through our consultation, but there's probably about 3 or 4 different offerings. The ones they're looking at a nighttime market, and others are wanting a seasonal market, and then others again are wanting a full-blown, full-day market, like a Saturday. So it would, depending on what comes back in a more focused consultation, then we would be able to really plan out timing. Because if it's a full day, we are obviously probably better positioned once the LRT is up and operational and the foot traffic has increased, and the development in the downtown with condos we're seeing more people living and working downtown.
Okay. I guess so. My question, I'll just dig a little deeper, and I guess currently how the market's operating right now, your staff's pretty well at full complement. They're doing more than what they're tasked to do. Is that correct?
Yes. When we first started launching events, the events were primarily, and this would be like in 2011 once the kitchen was open and operational. Primarily what we were looking at is a Tuesday to Saturday staffing model to handle the workload. What's happened since then, and if you could reference my growth slide, we've grown exponentially with regards to cooking classes and with regards to rentals and as well our own events. And we brought on kids camps that was new 3 years ago. And we've had some great success, and the demand is there. So currently, what we're doing, we're accommodating a second shift, and when we work with the camp, we're now looking at a Monday to Friday coverage as well as the regular Tuesday to Saturday. So we're currently, yes, the staffing model is definitely at capacity, and I honestly, beyond capacity at times. It's challenging.
Okay. No doubt that
So,
I've heard amazing from the community, a lot of great comments, and I'll wait for comment points. But
Thank you.
thanks.
Councillor Gazzola.
Thank you. Can you tell me, what does the market cost the taxpayers currently?
Currently, it's $248,000.
Does that include capital, or is that just operating?
That's operating.
Yeah. Is there, there wasn't a lot of detail as to a business plan, and you state that upon your council's approval, you'll develop a detailed business plan. I would have liked to have seen a business plan. It's a little better to understand. Can you tell me, what are your revenues today? What kind of revenues do you make?
Before you go to that, Kim, staff keyed in staff number 7, I don't know which staff person did. Do you want to quickly, before we go to the next question, answer to the budget aspect of
Yes,
it?
yeah, through through you, Chair Singh. Just wanted to add a little bit more detail. The budget that Kim is responsible for is $248,000. We have an FM facilities management budget for the building itself of an additional $279,000. So the combined budget is around $527,000 net.
Thank you.
Do you want to summarize your second question again, just for...
Yeah, I would like to know, we're looking at a different strategy here, and I would like to know, where is our money coming from currently? How do we earn our money?
We earn our money through our vendors' stall lease rates for lower market and upper market. We have as well our rentals in the marketplace and our cooking classes in the marketplace. And we have ATM revenue. I can tell you that we're projected better than budget for 2016 by $55,000. So we will exceed the budgeted $617,000 worth of revenue that has been forecasted for the market this year.
Okay, looking at your information and about the numbers of people that go through the market, I was able to roughly calculate that 90% of your customers are for Saturday markets. So is it fair to say that 90% of your revenue comes from our Saturday markets?
Yes, that would be fair.
So
The revenue.
You're looking at a new strategy. Where does that new strategy, what does it relate to? Are you relating to the remaining 10% of your revenues? Well, just exactly where do you plan to go?
Councillor Gazzola, I think the strategy does focus on growth of the market. And Kim, do you want to speak to the usage right now, how it's divided? I think that's what the question focused on, as people that come. What's the weekend usage or number of participants over the week, as opposed to the weekdays, and where that additional demand through your consultation, what that demand spoke to of the additional day, if you want to focus on that.
I'm not 100% sure I understand your question, but during the weekday, if we take a look at being a catalyst to the food industry, typically those startups would be renting the kitchen, and that would be traffic within the kitchen during daytime, when it's difficult sometimes to rent that space because although we do rent it for corporate events, we can't necessarily fill it every day. So that would be one aspect. The second day market is what we heard clearly people are talking about. And that would be during the weekday, and we would combine that with the events program. They wanted a diverse events program, so we would have an attraction to bring them downtown for that second day and combine it with a market activity. Does that address your question?
Well, I'm trying to see where we're going. If you zero in on these areas that you want to change, what is it going to do to your revenue position? Is it going to decrease the $250,000 annual operating costs, or where does it take us? What does it do for us?
A majority of the items that were listed as action items in the full strategy are things that I can do within my budget and that have been earmarked already. The two items that would be new and that we need to do more investigation on is certainly overhead costs to a second day market, and I would build a business plan that I can certainly bring to council. The other item with the upgrade to the kitchen, we're looking at a stove that's not necessarily meeting standards that we already know we need to upgrade at some point. So it makes sense while we're looking at being a catalyst for the food industry that we take into consideration input from experts like the chefs that we deal with and Conestoga College that we've dealt with their program, and factor that in to make the right decision the first time.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola, if you have more questions, you can bring back in. Councillor Schneider, but before you do, Rod, do you want to add something further?
Yes, just through you, Councillor Singh, I'd like to add a little bit more detail. For the last 3-4 years since Kim has taken over management of the market, every single year we've exceeded the revenue projections for the operating side of the Kitchener market. I would say, though, that the market as an operation is extremely lean, and there's not much capacity to expand programming beyond what we have now without some additional expenditures. So I think it's fair to say that we see the market not delivering additional savings for council in the next year or two. Rather, we really do see the need to spend a little bit more money on the operating side so that we can staff the additional days that people are demanding and provide some additional services. Right now we are staffed up for a 5-day-a-week operation. It's clear the public wants to have a 6-7-day-a-week operation in terms of rental activities and that sort of thing. So that's going to take some additional staff resources.
That's fine, but I think that what the question was, with the additional activity, is there potential for extra revenue?
And there is absolutely potential for extra revenue, for sure. Yeah, no doubt about that.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Singh. I like your goal of bringing people together. The events that we've been able to have there, like the Rising Stars program with Conestoga College, with the pop-up restaurants, with the gourmet meals at an amazing price, have been really successful. Do you see with some of these improvements that you'd be able to make that this type of activity would increase and the revenue from them would also increase?
Yes, definitely. Certainly once we get the word out and we advertise that in fact we are there to facilitate, we'll be able to get the interest of a lot of young entrepreneurs and startups in the food industry and facilitate, and there will be rental revenue with regards to them utilizing our kitchen space. As well, they are then a pool of chefs that we can draw from to be able to offer events where we can create revenue as well.
Okay, and charitable events have also become more popular at the market. Will these improvements, you think, help improve the number of charitable events you can get in? Because it's the ones that I've attended seem to have a very happy crowd at them.
Definitely. Like we've been active with regards to hosting charity events around food in the past, and I think, certainly with our connections and we'll be able to accommodate more events around that and supporting community groups such.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor Venovic.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Kim, for the great work that you and your team have done on this strategy. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to visit Kim in her office at the market, there was this wall of strategy, and it was covered in different colored sticky notes with all sorts of ideas clumped together in different categories. That was there for some time, and it's nice to see how all of those ideas have been synthesized into this report. Lots of great information in here. Two questions that I have that maybe you can elaborate on a little bit. One is specifically how this new strategy will interrelate with the work that we're doing on neighborhoods in terms of our neighborhood strategy, and in particular some of the work we're doing as part of the planning review in terms of looking at neighborhood markets and community gardens and so on.
Actually, we had a really good meeting with the neighborhood strategists, and we already have something in the works with regards to the Kitchener Market, providing a pop-up market kit idea. We're not 100% sure what that looks like, but the thinking is that we would be able to streamline some of the red tape that they experience with regards to getting vendors to their market, perhaps, and as well getting a licensed kitchen to do the baked goods. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is actually the physical setup. So having a pop-up market kit would include something like the canopy that the neighbors, we're only there, we would be there for support, but the neighbors then will be able to develop and enjoy the success of their own market.
Okay, that's certainly great to hear, and I'd love to sort of have some more discussions with you around that in the months ahead as that develops. The second part then really has to deal with this idea of food startups, and it's certainly something that interests me. In fact, I think probably Mr. Wilmer and Mr. Pinar will remember a few years ago when we had the group of planning students, Mr. Sloan as well, from U of W, and every year we have a different group that looks at different areas, and it was the Market District a few years ago, and I remember one of them sort of really focused around building this food incubator district around the market and so on, and so this is really, I think, in some respects, bringing their idea to life. Do we have a sense of how much of a market there is for that? And obviously it's going to need to involve a lot more partners than just us to make that happen. I do know that the Meal in the Jar people are just half a block away over on Eby Street with their little operation. Mm-hmm. Wondering if you can talk a little bit more in terms of how you see this rolling out in the months ahead.
Well, I certainly see if we were to be a catalyst in the food industry, that's certainly a spark of an idea. And as we nurture and can help mentor, and that's with other partners, the partnership is something that we definitely have to bring into the equation. And we'll be able to perhaps launch something, and then they find space in the Market District area. We're also we have different options for them to grow, and we're thinking of building a roadmap with regards to how they can grow. So we have corporate tables available for startups at the market on a Saturday so they can showcase what they've got. And then we have the International Food Court vendors that there's spaces there. I mean, just this week alone, there was a new startup who offers high-quality artisan food, who had a corporate table, and I connected them with one of our upper-level vendors, and now they've taken on that product to fully complement what they're selling, because they weren't making a dessert. So, you know, we see it in a small way, and it is a spark of an idea, but it can grow. And when it gets to a stage where they're ready to launch, then we may see smaller businesses in that particular neighborhood leasing space in the market district.
Okay, I have one short follow-up. Can I just throw it in? So is this the kind of thing, though, that beyond the market district could see it really going into uses around the city? So I'm thinking of sort of certified kitchens, whether in our community centers or in churches and so on, that potentially could see these kinds of businesses popping up then in different areas of the city as well?
I would definitely have to speak to the people running the community center kitchens, but and certainly the churches to reach out. But yes, without a doubt, this is a model that can be duplicated. That, you know, once we prove the success of it, people will probably be very interested in it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Janetsky.
You indicated in your presentation that the response from a lot of the patrons and customers that you have coming would like a second-day market. Mm-hmm. And years ago, there was a second-day market on Wednesdays that started when the new market was opened up in 2004. It lasted 3 years, and actually was a carryover from when the farmers market was at Market Square. Mm-hmm. But the reason I understand that the market on Wednesdays sort of fizzled out was that just wasn't enough customers, and the vendors there were unhappy that just weren't making sales meet and decided to sort of fold up. But the customers that are right now you sort of canvassed are interested in. Do you see this as a problem in terms of, you got interest for second-day market from the clients, but are the vendors willing to do it if they say, well, there's no profit margin in it, and we don't want to come here and have a losing day and not make ends meet? What's the point of coming? Do you see that as a problem?
Yes, and I have actually kind of solicited our vendors first, and there are some that desperately want it, and then there's some that are adamantly against it for those particular reasons. So I'm hearing I could probably put together a small market right now. If you've had the opportunity to go to Preston Market that just opened up this summer, they have pretty much the vendor mix is one of each, representing each kind of category. So one meat vendor, one bakery, one vegetable, one fruit kind of thing. And enhanced with a draw card like music or some type of entertainment and fun element. And also, setting expectations is so important. It won't be a Saturday market. It's going to be something unique and different. So what is that? So we've got to make sure that we work through communications and we advertise that appropriately and accurately, and that the timing is right with regards to foot traffic. And we're constantly monitoring that with our lunchtime traffic. So I think, it's certainly coming. We've seen great increases in foot traffic. We still have a little ways to go, but it will be a thing of the future.
Now, this Cambridge one, you say is just a summer, a second-day market, or is it all year round?
This was a Thursday. So this is a midweek market that and this is in Preston, that they just opened this last year. And that was, it's seasonal only.
Oh, seasonal only.
Yes.
Okay, and I can appreciate that. Like St. Jacob's Market, they have theirs Thursdays and Saturday, and that's all year round. So I'm just wondering, is your objective to be seasonal only because, I mean, fruits and veggies only grow, spring, summer, fall,
Right.
basically, or are you trying to make something all year round? What's your objective?
The first things first is that I would want to do a more focused stakeholder engagement with a bunch of questions around what expectations are for the success of a midweek market.
Okay. This strategy that you have here before us in terms of this paper, assuming council endorses and supports it, and you're looking at a number of years of strategy, how much will you require more staff in the near future or soon, or is this something you can do with existing staff?
Currently, we are at capacity with the workload we have. So if there's anything additional, it would depend on timing that we're going to launch that. But yes, we would be looking for more staff.
Okay, so that'll come probably in the future, and you'll do that through budget process, I guess, right?
That's right.
Okay. One last question is, the report here is very positive oriented, all good things, a whole bunch of ideas, etc. What negative things have you found that you need to really address in here that sort of don't jump out as negatives, but you sort of take them as positive? I mean, we know the market's only open one day a week, and you try to use it as much as possible. But are there other negative things that haven't been captured here?
Yes. A negative thing that keeps coming up time and time again is parking. The parking situation is such that there is a lot of parking, but it's a matter of advertising and making sure it's available. And I think also the distance, like once the parking garage is full in the market itself, the alternative parking would be the squash courts and also Market Square. Okay, so Market Square is a lovely little walk down Market Lane, which I think it needs to be promoted that way, and we've done things to make that a more enjoyable walk by putting stringed lights, that kind of thing. So it's a matter of educating the people that the parking's available, but as well we're looking at valet delivery of your groceries to your car. Because, I mean, I've experienced it firsthand with regards to the elderly struggling with their groceries. And so I think once we implement that type of service, it will be very helpful.
Okay, I see my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. First, I just wanted a clarification. I think perhaps, Kim, you're being a bit modest in saying you're at capacity. I just wanted clarification because I recall at audit committee, I think it was in the last year or so, that in fact the audit indicated that you are over capacity or understaffed. Is that not the case?
Last year we got approval for half a head count. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm saying the audit that we received indicated that you were understaffed at the market.
Came up, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. So I struggle with the market a little bit. I mean, in some ways, I think is it more of a business like that should generate revenue like our parking enterprise? Is it more of a community center where it's completely unrealistic to have that expectation? So, and I understand that this is light in finances because that's to come forward. But what are your thoughts on, like, as a guiding principle, and that maybe it's a 10-year time frame, but that the market ultimately should be revenue neutral? Is that an attainable goal, or do you think that's unrealistic in the long run?
I really can't say. I don't feel comfortable saying whether it will be, pure revenue profit center. Quite frankly, I don't think it's likely. The building is aging, so our expenses will go up as we increase the programming. There are some costs to that. I am putting together a good revenue model so that we can handle those expenses, and I've been doing that and still bringing forward increased revenues. But fast forward 10 years from now, I don't think I could really comment for sure.
Okay, so that might be a bit ambitious at this point. Okay. So I guess then that leads into the same sort of point then, and because this is Layton Finances, and I understand that this will be coming forward as a part of any budget case then, but will it be looked at, like I understand all of the analysis that's been looked at and the outreach has been how to make the market better. As part of the second phase in the finance, will part of that be looking at how we can offset the costs? Like, will the business case include, yes, if we have open Wednesdays, or is the target going to be that part will be revenue neutral, or will that increase the deficit?
Yes, if bringing a business case or issue paper to council, I definitely would be justifying the numbers with proposed revenue streams.
Okay. And I guess the last question in terms of timing, like I'm interested in expanding the timing as well of the market, but I'm wondering on the timing of it. Do you think that this is something we should really be looking at implementing before the completion of the LRT and its opening?
Definitely, if we're going for a full day market day, we should definitely wait until the LRT is operational. However, I would consider a seasonal market prior to that to test the waters and to kind of get some of the operational changes ironed out.
Okay, thank you. I'll have a brief comment as well, Mr. Chair.
Yep, come back to comments. Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for the, it was an interesting meeting that we had both in your office and then again in Council Lounge. And I've seen how flexible and responsive you and your staff have been to new ideas and rentals, and kudos to you guys for doing that. A couple of questions I have is, do you have an idea of what extra revenue you may be able to generate, whether it's through rentals, through special events, through your kitchen, through possible another day for a market? Have you some understanding or sense that you can give to us?
Mm-hmm. We have capacity now to probably double our rentals, so that revenue combined with the Oktoberfest rental that we've taken on for this year, we're probably looking at about 28,000 in extra revenue from that alone. Now, I will say that a second day of market, I see that model. We can't guarantee, we wouldn't be able to charge necessarily exactly what we get for lease space on a Saturday. It would be dependent on, like, that would be a growth sliding scale as we see the foot traffic, and we don't know yet the hours of operation as well for that midweek market.
I mean, some of your costs are fixed costs no matter what, whether you have that extra market or you don't have that extra market, right? If you are adding additional events and additional activities, are you hoping that the extra revenue will offset the extra operational costs? That, I mean, you're going to need additional staff, or it's not going to change your fixed costs, but it will change your operational costs.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. There'll be challenges with regards to parking, because currently parking midweek is chargeable. So, we'll have to take a good hard look at how that's handled. If it's an evening market, we're looking at more staff working longer hours or additional staff. Those are probably the two biggest, the logistics behind that piece.
Okay. So you talked about the kitchen and all the different things that are happening in the kitchen, and there's a lot of really exciting and fun things that are happening in the people are coming to use the kitchen for. Have you had more requests for the kitchen than you can accommodate at this time?
Pretty much we've tried to accommodate people, but what I will say is that we haven't been really active with regards to promoting rentals. It's mainly through word of mouth. And we haven't done a full launch of our rental space because I'm concerned that we don't have the staff to handle it.
Right, okay. Mr. Regier, you said that the revenue was higher than anticipated. Where the cost of the market is $248,000. The revenue, you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, was around $600,000? Did I hear that right or wrong, or is my fabricating that somehow?
Our rental that we pull in, the revenue, from the vendors is about $650,000 a year.
Okay. All right. I mean, to me,
That's just from the vendors, or the rental? Is full
Just from the
operation
ven-
is 600,000.
I'm sorry, I'm going to correct that number. So it's about 600,000.
okay. So it's
Now, over and above that would be the marketplace
right.
revenue.
Okay. So to me, that would seem that the cost of running the market is offset by your revenue.
Well,
Is that not a good assessment?
the $248,000 that Kim has budgeted for the subsidy to her operations doesn't include the $279,000 that FM has budgeted for
Yeah.
the operating of the building itself, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, I understand that.
yeah, so just to clarify that.
Okay, all right. My time is out, but it's going to be a really quick question. When you start working on your business case, will you be working on some necessary plans as well? Can you break out what you really think you have to add on to make the market more successful, and then break out what would be sort of a nice to have? Because I sometimes think that unequivocally, the market to me is, this is a sort of a partial comment, is a wonderful community space for all kinds of reasons. So it might be interesting to see if you could break out some of that.
Okay.
It may be really detailed, and I don't want to add that to your workload, but just a thought.
Sure,
Is that
that's an
something?
excellent suggestion. I can do that.
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you.
have comments.
Yep. For anyone for comments, you can bring back in. Councilor Gazzola, is that for comments, or you have another questions? Okay. Before you go to the second set of questions, I had a few myself. Kim, you mentioned that obviously the building it is aging and will continue to age, and costs will accumulate on that end as well. Have you set up a capital reserve fund for expected repairs that will have to be done over time to the building? Is there a separate fund? Anyone
I
else?
think I should probably let FM address that, because they look after the...
Justin?
Through the chair, we have some minor capital allocations in the FM budget, but the asset management planning needs to be done for that building to look at the overall asset strategy.
And that was my expectation, and as we're looking out at most of our buildings to do that, so this is an opportunity for the strat plan. I appreciate the strat plan is for operational, but also as we try to move towards sustainability, it's more of a comment. Maybe you can try to answer some of the questions that come out of the comment. As we approach to more sustainability, that the capital expected costs over time will be built into it too. Is that the hope as well, or it's entirely just on a more operational growth of the business instead of approaching sustainability for operations?
Primarily, it's operational that I'd be looking at, but I have already earmarked in the capital budget several items that are in the action items, and they are within my capital budget today.
Okay, good. Glad that's a part of it. The other part is obviously there is a deficit, so it is tax supported. Part of what happens at the market. And you've said, any growth will have additional revenue corresponding to it, but obviously it will take some time to see exactly how much growth and what revenue will come from it. Are we looking at any new type of models as well, apart from just the growth of, the market days and the kitchen utilization? Is there, with time, broadening of the scope of what that market can be used for? Outside of its current usage? Or is that part of the strategy as well?
I'll probably be breaking down.
As an event space, that's what I'm really touching out on.
Sorry?
As an event space, that's what I'm touching on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And usage of the outside, the civic space that's outside as well.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be as part of the scope to utilize that more as well?
Definitely. We will be programming the piazza, so during the summer months, and identify what kind of events would happen there. But we have to remain flexible because of the rental options that come in. We never know what's going to be requested. And so you have to be ready to be able to shift things. And that's to service the community. And those are requests that seem to be extremely popular.
Are there opportunities for permanent rental spaces there as well, or space is limited? We're utilizing all the space that's available there already.
We have some evenings that are available. I feel that we still have probably 3 evenings worth of rental opportunity in the evenings during the week, and oftentimes one on the weekend. Then we have daytime space as well, but it depends on the staffing model to be able to service that.
I think that's the running theme. It seems to keep on coming back to the staffing model, so good. All right, so Councillor Gazzola, you had some more questions.
Yeah, can you tell me when will council receive your business plan if this is approved today? When will we receive the business plan?
The business plan, it's dependent on approval of this strat plan, and I'd be in better position to say. The business plan we would be working on and probably have it ready to roll in January or in the new year.
Okay, I'm assuming that this is going to pass today, so I can look forward to a business plan sometime in February.
In where, sorry?
February. March.
February.
February?
Yeah, yes. But wouldn't it have to come earlier because it would have to be budgeted, right? So.
Okay, that gives me some idea.
Yeah.
Can you tell me where one can get a little more information on the public engagement process that you had? You talk about 3,000 voices, or where can we get a little more detail on that?
I can make that available to you.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, without additional work, I would appreciate it. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. I just want to touch on this extra days of operations. You know that has been tried many times over the last 25 years, and it's never been successful. Mm-hmm. Not due to the lack of hard work on the behalf of the people at the market, but just it hasn't been able to attract the customers. Have you talked to? Has there been anyone around that you could talk to as to what went wrong in the past and how you're going to overcome that for the future if you're going to go down that route?
I did speak with Keith Bach before he left, and he was managing the market manager, director, but managing the market at that time before he left the city. And I have detailed notes with regards to what his input, with regards to what he changed if he had a chance to do it again.
Rod, do you want to add?
Just very briefly, it's a real challenge for sure, and I guess my own view is that the market, the opportunity to add days to the market calendar is going to really depend on the level of urbanization that takes place in that particular area. The station stop on Charles and Cedar will create an opportunity to expand our customer base, and it will need to be a little bit exploratory for sure. We're well aware of the challenges. Certainly, the market vendors have no illusions about the opportunity and the challenges.
Okay, my final question: how can I judge at the end of 5 years whether your plan here is successful? What goals are there, and how can I simply look at it and say, yes, that was a good plan and it was successful? What would I see?
We would be implementing measurables similar to what we do for Saturday Market today. So on a midweek market, we would be looking at certainly foot traffic. That's huge for us. But as well, customers, every second year, I do a survey which collects data from the customers themselves. So we would have a section for the midweek market. Now, with regards to the catalyst for the food industry, we would certainly keep records with regards to our engagements, like where we've advertised and what kind of results we got and contacts and who's been through. We'd start tracking the number of touch points where we've helped startups or helped entrepreneurs, and then ultimately success is launching businesses and seeing them be successful.
Okay, you've told me all the things that you will do all along the way, but what would you expect to see? You now have some 600,000 people going through the market. Would you see a million two over the next 5 years on an annual basis? 1 million people a year?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your goal. Okay, thank you.
All right, we're on to comments. Oh, you do? Okay, sorry. Councillor Galway-Sealon.
Sorry, I queued in kind of late, but I'm going to make a quick comment, but I have a question. I just think there's a lot of really exciting stuff in this strategy, and I'm excited to see a lot of it come to fruition. But you've talked a lot about partnerships to fulfill a lot of the initiatives outside of just the weekday market potential. There's a lot of other things that are really good in this strategy, and you've talked about needing partnerships in order to fulfill a lot of those initiatives. And I know that this will likely come through your business case, but are you looking at sponsorships or naming to assist with possible upgrades? For example, I know we talked about the upgrades in the kitchen facilities. Mm-hmm. Are those potential revenues that you're going to be looking at if they pertain to some of these action items within the strategy?
Yes, we definitely are looking to working through the CAO's, the mayor's office and the strategist, Paul, in order to find out if we can, in fact, find sponsorship for the kitchen upgrades to kitchen equipment, and if that's even a possibility.
Okay. I just think all avenues should be at least looked at and explored, and I guess that will probably come back through some of your business case or as these initiatives roll out and need funding to support them. So I'm very supportive of this strategy and moving it forward, and I look forward to the rest of it as it unfolds. Thank you.
That was the comment as well. Okay, all right, good. Excellent efficiency, I love it. Councillor Davey?
Thank you. It was moved by Councillor Marsh?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I'll be supporting the recommendation. There's a lot of my questions are more on the finance side, but I don't want that to belittle all of the good work and good plans that are going on and planned for the market. I recognize the work that's been done. I know that you've narrowed the deficit in the time that you've been there, and I do appreciate that. I will be clear, I'm not making it part of the recommendation, but I do think that targeting being revenue neutral in the long run is achievable, even if it's just on the operating side. I think that's something that I would like to see, is at least to keep pressure on staff. I do want to say that I do think we're going to have to make some big decisions going forward. I do respect the fact that our market staff is stretched, and we're at a bit of an inflection point here where we either have to make a decision, I think, to cut back and reduce the service levels at the market, or take a bit of a risk and invest more in the hopes that we can earn more. And I strongly believe in most instances, sometimes you do have to invest, you have to spend money to make money. So I look forward to the business case that comes back, and I will happily support this recommendation.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Singh. Again, I want to just comment on the good work that Kim and your staff have done. I've constantly hear throughout the community how amazing the market is, and to be honest, I don't really hear that too much about any other facility. So I think that's a big kudos towards you guys. In addition, I think back in 2004 is when the market was put. I think even myself would have questioned why we would put the market there. But I think in retrospect, it was probably a really good decision. And if we were to look at putting a facility today, it would definitely be double the cost, if not triple the costs. And so I think that was a really wise investment at the time. And to hear that there's 650,000 visitors coming to the market, I mean, to me, again, we probably don't have too many other facilities besides the Odd where we have that many residents or folks, patrol or entertain or go to. And I think that's just a great statistic, and I'm glad you're keeping track of that. As part as the participation with this consultation, with having over 3,000 folks, to me speaks a lot of volumes on how valuable the market is to our community. And it's a heritage in my mind, a tradition that I think we should embrace and keep further enhancing. So I think we're at a natural evolution in the market right now, where I think we're ready for that next level of community use to expand. And I think it's exciting times, and I think the timing this time is going to make a difference compared to all the other times when we tried to expand the market. I think the foodie culture is something that's becoming rather I don't know how, just people are embracing, and to have fresh and local is something that, again, is just the community is just ready to embrace, and I think, again, I'm looking forward to seeing the business plan, because I think it is a pivotal investment, in particular that part of the downtown. I think it's a great diversification and commitment that we'll make to the community.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. I also want to congratulate you, Kim, and Michelle, who's here in the audience as well, just on the hard work that you do every day to make the market great. I think that some of the new initiatives that I hear are coming forward with potential valet shopping and pop-up neighborhood markets is like a toolkit for neighbors who would like to get together and make a temporary market in their neighborhood. I think that's really exciting. One thing that hasn't been mentioned so far today is the pilot that we had in June last year with the Wednesday market in the Carl's Air Square, and I heard some really positive feedback. I know that we had a few slow days and we had a few really banner terrific days, but that the vendors in the end were clear that they want to continue with the piloting for an extended period next year. So I think that that's worth noting. And of course, the Saturday market is our main day at the market, but let's not forget, of course, the international cuisine vendors that are open for business Tuesday to Saturday. That I think, we can't just say, oh, well, the market's only there for Saturdays. We are open for business Tuesday to Saturday. And so any additional work in these newer areas that you're looking to work in are going to help support those businesses as well. The more emphasis that we have on bringing more people to the market on other days of the week beyond Saturdays is also going to support the businesses that exist there right now. So I think that's another point to support your strategy. And, you've been asked for measurable outcomes, and I appreciate that, because I think we'll all be looking for measurable outcomes, but that's not necessarily something that I would expect you to have today as you go forward and build your business strategy, business case and your business strategy, I think, or business plan. I think that including some indicators that will help us measure your success over the next 5 years will be great to have. So I think that it's going to be great when council supports your strategy, so you can move towards business plan. And I know that we'll need to have an issue paper before your business plan is complete, if it's not complete till the new year, but I'm sure you're fully aware of that as well. And I want to echo Councillor Ioannidis's points that the foodies in our community, are looking for more and more access to fresh and local food and organic food and also international food. So we've got the whole gamut of interest, and with our population that is like never before, really more and more interested in understanding where their food's coming from, and I think that's going to support your strategy as well. So well done.
Thank you.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Singh. Kim, I want to thank you and your team for a great strategy, and it took a lot of time and research and engagement to come up with it. I also appreciate the invitation you extended to each of the councillors to meet with you and discuss this before this meeting. It was very informational, a lot of chance to have questions answered there, and you were very upfront and very informative on that, so I thank you for that. I do like this theme of bringing people together, and I think the goals that you've set out are going to do that. This embraces our Make It Kitchener philosophy. There's innovation, there's startup opportunities there. I think your three goals are very commendable. They're exciting. This will be and continue to be a true gathering place centered around food. And these new opportunities are really going to enhance that. I'm glad you've made affordable food a priority and local food a priority. You've got some really good opportunities for partnerships here as well. You've done very well so far, and I think this could really help you and your team there take it to the next level. Again, great research. You've taken in a lot of input and engagement, and I think you've got some achievable goals here, and I commend you on it and look forward to supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councillor Adington.
Yeah, very quickly, through you, Mr. Chair. Kim, I think you're running a fabulous facility, and I, for one, would certainly be willing to invest more money. I walk to the market every Saturday when I can, but I do have difficulty when I take the car if finding parking, if on the occasion my wife decides to buy several tons of blueberries. And I wondered I hope you're making efforts to communicate where that parking is once your garage is full. The only other tongue-in-cheek suggestion I would make is a bylaw to prevent hugging in the aisles, because while you look for an increase in community, I find it clutters up the market. Thank you.
Councillor Gazzola.
What can one say here? I want to start out by saying I appreciate the work that staff have done in the market. I think there have been a lot of improvements over the past 2 or 3 years, and I think you've obviously been on the right track, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate the work that's being done, but unfortunately, I'm not going to support what's before us today for the nothing to do, a reflection upon you, the people that have prepared this report. It's an excellent report. The problem I find is that with too many things, we sit here and we approve strategies and plans, master plans, and then somehow they get set aside, and then for the next number of years, the odd thing comes forward, and the point is, well, they're in their strategy, we've approved it, let's go forward. And I'm not going to support this today, but I understand a business plan will be coming back shortly, at which time I gather there will be a vote on the business plan, and I'd be well prepared at that point, if I can support the business plan, to support where you're going in the direction that you'd like to go. And so really I do have 2 kicks at the can. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you.
So our market to me is a place that's more than just a place to buy food. It's a place of gathering where people buy their food and visit with friends and hug in the aisles and clog up the aisles and enjoy coffee and have a meal and go to events that are all being held there. And so when I look at the strategy that you've put forward with the help of all of the input that you have, I see that that's really what you've captured. So, you know, I also have seen how responsive you and your staff are to a variety of interesting and different rental opportunities, weddings, funerals, food and drink, beverage events, now Oktoberfest. So it's hard to not support the strategy. It's a little challenging, I guess, without some financial actual figures, but I think that you've done an incredible job over the last number of years making our market an earmark, a place to go, a venue for way more than just buying your food. And so I hope that this is able to translate through your business case when you come forward, and I suspect that there will be a request for resources. You've sort of said that in our meeting. And although I have a hard time sometimes supporting that, I see that without that, you won't be able to grow where you want to go, and you won't be able to develop the market as a place to go, not just for your food, but for all of the other reasons you've done in the past. I hope that your business case also is able to include some sponsorship opportunities, whether it's for the kitchen or for Piazza, something that will help offset some of your operational costs. I'm sure this is going to be very challenging for you over the coming months, especially to have it all sorted out and ready for budget. So thanks for bringing this forward to us, Kim and Michelle and your staff. And I really look forward to seeing our market become better than St. Jacob's.
Thank you.
Councillor Janetsky.
Well, I conveyed a number of comments to you back a month or two ago when we met in the council lounge, and where you were coming from in terms of the discussions, and some of my experiences of traveling through Europe, and I indicated that to you recently through Budapest. I trust you got the photos I sent you after that, and of course other markets I checked out in Prague and Salzburg. I don't specifically go to check out the markets, I'm there for other reasons, but if they happen to be open and it's nearby, I go take a look and check it out as well. And so, you know, they're successful, and I'd like to see us to be successful as well, but of course we have different challenges, etc. I appreciate the strategy report. Looks good. It's got lots of objectives and lots of good intentions, and I hope maybe it works out. But again, just like Councillor Gazzola, I'm wanting to see the business plan and see how this all translates into that. I'm also struggling with comments I've heard from residents, my constituents, and others on the great success of the farmers market, and we should move forward and have it grow and get it filled up. To others who've told me to sell the market. It's a white elephant, and we don't need it. So I've heard the wide ranges on it, and I know there's struggles. Maybe that's why they took one position, and others see it as a different position. I'm going to support the strategy here for now, because I see there's good intentions and good opportunities to move forward. But again, it'll be all subject to the business plan to see how we move forward on this. So I know you got challenges on this, and that's part of why you're here doing your work. So good luck.
Thank you.
Mayor Vivanovic.
Thank you very much. I think a lot has already been said in terms of this work, and I earlier commented on the tremendous job that staff have done on this report and the work that they do on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis at the market. As Councillor Janetsky said, as one travels and visits other communities, there's really one common thread that links people together. I guess in a sense, two common threads, and they're often situated around food and around music. And in many instances and in many communities, both of those can be found at community markets in urban centers around the world. And I think this city's commitment to seeing its market continue to thrive in an urban setting really emphasizes our commitment to city building and to the important role that market plays in the life of our community. I think this strategy is going to help take our market to the next level. You know, I remember as a young person coming down to our old Kitchener market from Hamilton, and it was because it was the place my parents found traditional sour cream like they used to get in the old country to make strudel with. And so we would travel from Hamilton for that, and then obviously bought a whole bunch of other stuff, and that was in the basement of what's now Market Square. I'm really excited about what this plan has to offer. I think it speaks to the direction the market needs to go forward in, not just for the downtown, but for our community overall. And I look forward to the additional work that's going to be done in the months ahead to bring this new vision to reality. So thank you, and job well done.
Thank you.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yeah, just very quickly, because I made most of my comments already. I do too want to thank staff for the work that they do, but I also just wanted to make a comment that we can't have staff do a business plan if they don't have a strategy to work off of, a guiding focus. And it's our role as members of council to provide that focus and direction. They brought us a report here in the strategy, and we need to give them the direction in order for them to do the business case. And so voting against this doesn't do anything to give them that focus that they need in order to do the business plan moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Galloway-Seelock, and my comments were going to be something to the same line. This strategy is really a roadmap for us to have a basis of direction where this marketplace is heading. And one of the things I took away from the report, it said no longer a place just to buy produce. And that's truly the case. It really is a center of placemaking. Obviously, it has had struggles, and it is tax supported for a facility of that size. Obviously, there's always encouragement and hope that over time there will be a sustainability, and it can support on its own 2 feet. And I think that's the direction we need to continue to head. But the takeaways from the report, what I see is, and I see that you're very cautious, Kim, with your projections, and I appreciate that. Sometimes there's a tendency to oversell something. You're certainly not trying to do that here. You're being optimistic, but still conservative with what could happen, because there's a lot of work that will have to be put in place to achieve the results that we would hope. But the significant component is that there truly is a potential for growth. I think where the market is positioned, with its proximity to the LRT station, with the intensification that is going to happen around the LRT stop there. As I said, the market is really poised for growth and far better utilization than we've had. And just want to congratulate staff in formulating the strategy. It is forward thinking. It does think outside the box. And I look forward to the business case that will come out of it, so that we can have the necessary dialogue and discussion, seeing what components that will come out of this strategy that are affordable or make sense to invest, and what don't. So we're not giving a blanket approval. We're saying that this is the positive direction of heading and taking this marketplace going forward, and having a more fruitful dialogue as to more investments that do need to be made, and with additional operation components as well. So thank you to staff for bringing this forward. And the item has been moved. Comments have been made. All in support? Point of personal. Oh, okay. Councillor Fernandez?
Just want to make a quick comment that when we point a finger in a direction of a particular comment that a councillor may have made, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is wrong or incorrect. Sometimes we make a point. It doesn't mean that we don't support something. And I think I really do feel that council does that far too often, and we should rethink that before we make a point of criticizing a particular councillor because they don't agree with something.
I think this hall is for public discourse. We can have different opinions. I think that needs to be said with respect, but we can all feel differently. I don't think it's aspect of comments are necessarily for personal attack. They really are to outline our personal opinions, and they may be very contradictory, and I don't think we should take an offense out of that. And hopefully it's positive outcomes do proceed forward. So anyways, item has been moved. All those in favor? All recorded vote? Okay. Those in favor? Opposed? And the item carries. Before we move on to item number 3, provincial plan review, that's an extensive document as well. Let's just take a quick, just 2-minute break, and then we can reconvene. should definitely start reconvening the meeting. I just wanted to give a couple minutes just to kind of freshen our minds. Sometimes it's necessary. It gets overwhelming on one topic, and I think a little bit of a refresher in between the next big thing is always helpful. Staff, if we can take seats, staff have a presentation first for the provincial plan review, proposed growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. When you're ready.
This could change how our city looks and grows into the future. The province has been very busy working on a coordinated plan review. 4 plans: the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, Niagara Escarpment Plan, Oak Ridges Moraine Plan, and the Greenbelt Plan. The growth plan is the only one that currently applies in Kitchener. We'll call it the growth plan throughout the balance of the presentation and discussion. When it came in 2006, it added Kitchener and Waterloo Region into the Greater Golden Horseshoe for the first time and put a whole bunch of new requirements in. That's where the intensification level target came from. The built boundary line was created. There's a downtown density targets. New greenfield suburban development had to be built at a certain density and with complete communities. Since that time, to be honest, it's partly led to a lot of resources and study and work. Our new region official plan is partly based on this, which then the city's official plan is conforming to that and adding a bunch of new policies as it relates to implementing the growth plan. And it is 10 years later, and so the province is proposing significant changes to that plan. And so the other key thing is that this is not just about land use planning. I'm going to go through a few of the key themes from the province and some of the policies to illustrate that it's also about engineering, infrastructure, transportation, parks, stormwater management, climate change, finances, etc. And so I'll flip through a few of the key policies, identify and highlight a little bit of the staff commentary in the report to submit to the province, and then we can open it up for any commentary that the committee might have. So building complete communities, one of the main focus areas. And so the province has really been promoting complete communities, having a range of housing types, having different land uses like commercial businesses, employment areas, institutional uses in close proximity. A lot of emphasis is now being put on urban design, public realm, etc. As you intensify, you need to have great urban spaces. A lot of this is about placemaking. Public health, climate change, those are new focus areas for in this new growth plan. Another key thing to point out is that the province is looking at when and how you can review all of the policy matters. And they call it a municipal comprehensive review. Instead of just having one-off files where someone looks to change an old industrial site to potentially some other kind of land use like retail, that should be done at a comprehensive citywide or possibly region-wide scale and at certain times. However, in this new growth plan, the province is proposing that that only be initiated by the region, in our case, an upper tier or single tier municipality. Currently, the lower tier municipalities such as Kitchener could conduct these, and we have in the past, for our employment lands review. So that's one key point that we are addressing and noting in the comments. And you'll see why as we get to a few of the other policies. So what's directed is that essentially at that next time of a municipal comprehensive review, which in our case would be our new regional official plan update, which is tentatively scheduled to start in 2019, we would have to look at a new intensification target. What's currently in place from the province for a region is 40% of the new residential development has to be in your existing built-up area. And in Waterloo Region, we're currently going through a process of identifying what that means for each of the municipalities, because our region, through their plan, has set a target of 45%, and each municipality may or may not be slightly different once you factor in the townships. And so to go to 60%, that is the new direction for the future. that would not come into place right away, but upon updates to official plans. So that's one of the major changes that's getting a lot of the attention in the industry and with municipalities in Ontario that are part of the growth plan. What's important too is the second bullet is that within a region, the lower tier municipalities such as Kitchener, we would have to have at least that 60% or higher. There is no change to the downtown density target. The growth plan currently sets it at 200 residents and jobs per hectare. And Kitchener, we like to achieve more, and we have an awesome downtown, so we've actually gone for 225 persons and job per hectare target within our new official plan. There's a lot of policies about redevelopment and transition within what they call major transit station areas, which to us we've deemed the parts areas, the planning around rapid transit stations, places within a 10-minute walk of an LRT station. What's identified is that, well, municipalities should determine the geographic scope of that, put those boundaries in your official plan, have a minimum density target of 160 residents and jobs per hectare, and do a bunch of other things within that area, which we're doing. And that's thankful that our area is progressive and we've worked on that. One of the challenges we're pointing out in the report is that the provincial direction is that the region would do that in consultation with the city. However, locally, the local municipalities are the ones that are leading that process. And so we want to make sure that's pointed out, and also pointed out that the density target is something that we are looking at. That number actually coincides with what we've looked at through the parts plans. However, once we do every single plan, not everyone should maybe achieve the same number because there's stable neighborhoods in these areas, there's floodplains in these areas, and so there's other factors to consider. Another key one is the bottom bullet point, which also is getting a lot of attention in the industry and with municipalities, is that the new suburban subdivision areas, the density target is proposed to increase from 50 residents and jobs per hectare to 80 residents and jobs per hectare. And that's also proposed to change and come into place as soon as this new plan is approved. So there wouldn't be the same type of transition. To put that in a little bit of context, for Kitchener, a small townhouse site or a stacked townhouse site could achieve anywhere from 80 to 120. As you start to scale up to a subdivision, to a neighborhood, to a whole new community plan area, it becomes increasingly more challenging to deal with that number because of the undevelopable land, roads and stormwater management facilities and parks and environmental area conservation, etc. The province has proposed to change what areas can be netted out of that calculation, which provides a little bit of benefit, but maybe doesn't quite go far enough. So we pointed out a few things that should be maybe discounted from that. To put it to even further context, we've probably planned the highest density suburban area that Kitchener would have, and that's Rosenberg. And without taking these same type of takeouts, it's looking at a minimum of 74 residents and jobs per hectare. If you were to use the new provincial takeouts, it would be over 80, but it would probably be somewhere between 80 and 90. And so it's unlikely we would have large areas that would go much further than that. If you had smaller areas, it is conceivable that you could achieve that. For Kitchener, it's not as major a transition perhaps as for some areas, but it definitely will have impacts on the housing form that you would see in future areas, and it definitely would encourage things like mixed use. A few other key policies is that areas near frequent transit service need to be identified, and now they're changing the name to strategic growth areas instead of intensification areas. You have to have a density targets for them. There's a lot of direction about conserving prime employment areas and not having them convert to other uses, although there still remains a lot of question marks about some of the definitions and what could happen in some of these employment areas, so it's still not entirely clear. As it relates to settlement area boundaries, so if we were to expand our urban area, The province is going to be coming up with a new land needs methodology. Also, a few key things when looking at whether or not it's feasible or appropriate to expand in any area in the future. There's a long list of criteria that should be looked at. And there's a couple key ones that are being pointed out. One of them is we need to look at the full life cycle costs of infrastructure and public service facilities to support that growth. That's quite a key important piece that we're saying in pointing out the positive aspects of the province, including that. A public service facility would include things like a community center, library, fire station, etc. The province has a lot of policies about supporting agriculture, not as many apply here. Protecting natural heritage and water. There are many policies that actually dovetail well with how our area has progressed over the years and what we do. So essentially something that would require and mandate us to have a natural heritage system identified in our official plan and certain policies about it. This one we can check off because we did that in our new official plan. There's also direction about sub-watershed plans, water resource systems to protect them, key hydrologic features and areas. So a lot of these new terms in terms of the hydrologic features and hydrologic areas and policies that are being proposed come from the proposed Greenbelt plan. They're trying to coordinate them. And so we've got a general feel and understanding that it's aligned with a lot of the work that we do here. However, I would point out that the GRCA and the region are both looking into this in more detail and will be commenting in more detail on those policies. Infrastructure. Very important, and there's many policies that talk about how infrastructure, engineering infrastructure, should be integrated with land use planning, supported by master plans, and there's a lot of policies that talk about asset management. And so it's quite important, and our municipality is looking at asset management plans as well. A couple key things, of course, as noted on here, is looking at the financial viability over the full life cycle. Another key piece is that when municipalities are looking at new streets or even looking at refurbishing existing streets, is to take a complete streets approach, to look at providing facilities for all modes of travel, pedestrians, cyclists, transit, other road users. This could have some implications. It's the direction that a lot of municipalities have gone. If this was to apply to every single street, every single road reconstruction we were to do, one could imagine that that could get interesting in terms of the financial and even logistical viability. And that's been pointed out by some of our staff that have looked at this. Important policies as well about master planning, water, wastewater, stormwater management. The province, of course, is quite big on climate change and has integrated a lot of new policies into the growth plan. And so if this was to come into force, we would have to have official plan policies about how we're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, how we're going to adapt for climate change, have certain goals, what we're going to do about a greenhouse gas inventory and strategies and long-term and short-term targets. A lot of the direction it's building to, it includes even future changes to the building code that would be upcoming, is working towards the achievement of net zero communities in terms of energy emissions. There's policies about low impact development, so that's how stormwater management is treated on a site or in an area or with new development, that there's ways to reduce the amount of water that is flowing and the quality of that water. Another key piece to point out as well is that when we are doing and required to do asset management plans, we have to look at infrastructure vulnerability, resilience, and how we're going to adapt to climate change. The final section and final theme is about implementation. This is a large growth plan for the greater area that includes Toronto, Niagara region, our area up to Barrie, etc. It's increasing the growth plan horizon from 2031 to 2041 and providing new population and employment forecasts. And so our region is working with the province on that matter. We're going to have more stringent requirements for monitoring and reporting, which thankfully we already have a great growth management monitoring report that we've put together for many years, so we're ahead of the curve on that. And some of the transitional policies are having a lot of discussion and debate right now, because as I mentioned, some would come in right away, some would need the new region official plan and then the subsequent city official plan, and you have to do it within a certain time frame. The other key thing is that the province is proposing that where a council hasn't made a decision yet on a certain planning matters, it may have to conform to this new growth plan, even though it may have already been submitted. And so that's a key piece that's being talked about right now. We had got together a group of internal departments to talk about this. Also, the local municipalities in the region have gotten together and talked about this, and the item was raised at our local home builders liaison committee meeting as well over the summertime. One of the main positive highlights I think that we can put out there right now that is great to see in a provincial document is a future high-speed rail corridor through Kitchener. A lot of the efforts happen locally and regionally and with Toronto to try and make this happen. It's in the growth plan. It's in the provincial plan. Now we got to work on the next steps. As I alluded to, there's a lot of the directions that Kitchener's been taking with our master plans and the new stormwater management update work that we're a bit ahead of the curve, and a lot of what's reflected in the policies is consistent with our approach on some of our master plans. We're quite supportive of the concept of complete communities, trying to find what we can do to have more sustainable development to help with dealing with climate change, and transit as a priority has been a key feature of how we design our neighborhoods and areas in Kitchener. The other thing is that, and we've been pointing this out for a while, I guess, in terms of growth management principles, in terms of as we're growing, we need to have a key handle on the financial implications of that. Both capital, the life cycle replacement costs, and the operating costs of these things. And it's really positive to see the province bringing in not just about like hard infrastructure, but about public service facilities as well. Of course, it comes with a lot of challenges. You know, we're still working on implementing a lot of these things, and there's still some things up for debate right now. And with a whole wave of new changes, to be honest, we're going to have to dedicate some resources over the next many years to revisit a lot of the work that's been done over the last 10 years to make sure it's updated and it conforms. There's still a little uncertainty about the employment lands treatment. There's going to be a lot of pressure for us to complete these climate change plans. We have a community one, and we need to work further on implementing that. And there's a lot of pressure on municipalities to also walk the walk and get that done. And there is a slight issue in terms of the population employment. If it's a bit too high for an area, it's good to have growth, but we need to make sure that how it relates to our master planning, and relates to a certain development charge issue. And so we need to keep an eye on that and about the overall planning horizon. The report points out some of these within the general content. There's an appendix that goes into a whole bunch of details about each of the different sections to lay out some of the additional commentary. A little bit of what's proposed is still unclear, and we still need a little more time to understand the implications, because, to be honest, it's quite big. It's quite a lot of content and quite a lot of changes. We think we're on the right track. The provincial direction at a high level is good, but of course the implementation always comes down to the local level municipality, and we're the ones on the ground to deal with the areas, the neighborhoods, the challenges, the implementation. And so it would be, of course, very helpful to have more provincial support in implementing their policies, and of course in how things are administered through the OMB ultimately. So the commenting deadline is the end of October. There is input being provided throughout the geographic area from the industry, different stakeholders, environmental groups, municipalities, regions, and all indications we have is that this could happen in the early part of 2017. The province has of course, been working on a lot of plans. There's a lot of things happening at the provincial level. but the indications we have is in the first half of 2017 this could happen. So the staff comments are in the report. What I suggest, if it's the committee's will, that I could attach the minutes from today and or the next council meeting about this item, if it comes up at all, to the online form that they have. And so the report recommendation is before you. I'm here for any comments or questions.
Great, thank you. And I see that obviously the big component is to take the feedback. If you only had a citizen advisory committee on planning matters. I'm joking. So there are questions. The presentation itself was, I just want to compliment, it was really well laid out for our benefit because it provides a good summary. So as a takeaway from this meeting, we can better plan to provide comments to before council or even after that to staff. If you can send that report to us through email, that would be helpful. Councillor Fernandez, go ahead.
Okay, so I have like an entire page of questions, so I would like to have the opportunity to put them all forward publicly. So I will take my 5 minutes and I'll take my next 5 minutes, I'm sure. I've always had a sense that we're fairly ahead of the curve already, Brandon, on some of these issues. And our last growth management report was that we were higher than the 40% for build-up area, right?
Through the chair, yes, we are at a 5-year average of 44%, I believe.
Okay. I got a little sense that you were uncomfortable with the increase to 60% in the built-up areas. Can you explain your reluctance to that? Is there certain specific challenges you think that will happen with that?
Through the chair, some of the commentary that I'm giving today is an amalgamation of the commentary heard from all of the internal departments and staff, and also some of the discussion that's occurred amongst the local municipalities in the region. Personally, we actually charted quite a good course for how Kitchener could work up to that number. In our new official plan, we put forward an incremental intensification target by 5 years, and it would work up from 40, 45, 50, 55. It actually would work up to around that number by the time frame we likely would be looking at. There is the capacity and the potential to achieve it. What it means is continued shifts. We've heard from previous items in previous weeks that there's an interest in more intensification. If it's done in the right ways and in the right locations. There's going to be further look at what it means for our existing mature neighborhoods through our bus tour that we're going on tomorrow as part of that study. Kitchener's well positioned with all of our high density corridors in the downtown. Hitting that number every year is pretty difficult for a municipality that also in the future would have the majority of the greenfield land available as well. And so we have balanced growth. And so we need to consider the overall picture within our region and within our city.
Okay. I'm going to go through a couple of the other questions. How will we advocate for a stronger role? Because that's what I noticed on page 1-5, that there was a possibility of a diminished role for local municipalities.
Through the chair, we are pointing out, and I know City of Waterloo is pointing out, and other municipalities would be pointing out specific policies in the growth plan whereby the city should still be able to do a municipal comprehensive review. The city, maybe in our case, should take the lead about major transit station area details. The city should have a greater role in certain items. We'll see how receptive, I guess, the province is to those changes.
Okay. Well, you said that the 50 to 80 residents per hectare is a concern for the development industry. Why and how?
Through the chair, I don't want to talk in detail on behalf of the industry, but some of the major items include, it means a shift in dwelling types, a continued shift in dwelling types, which is already happening over the last 5 to 10 years, but essentially it means less single detached dwellings and new subdivisions is the bottom line. It's going to mean more townhouses, more stacked towns, more commercial, more mixed use. And some of that takes a little bit longer to build out. Some of that's a slightly different typology to build. And the other key things are about what's called the takeouts.
Yes.
So it makes sense, like if you're essentially, if you have parks, you have stormwater management facilities, you have roads, you have all these other important community infrastructure items that, like a school is going to give you 42 jobs on a 3 to 5 acre, 6 acre parcel. The density is low, but a school is important in a subdivision. So that would mean that the rest of the subdivision buildable area is actually going to have to be 100 or whatever the number is.
So when you're talking about, the different dwelling types, but you just mentioned one of the concerns I have is and it's in the appendix on 3-1, is the exclusion of buffer areas to natural heritage features. That's one of the comments. I'm sure that these in the appendixes are all comments by staff. I think that's to me, that's very concerning if they're going to reduce that. Is that something that we are going to be pressing the province on?
Through the chair, to confirm that, what that is saying is that we need clarification from the province if the takeouts is to include buffer areas of natural environmental features. We're still needing and going to have them. It's whether or not it actually counts in the calculation of the land area. So if you have more buffer area, therefore you would have to have higher density on the developable portion. It's not clear right now whether buffers are in and out.
Okay.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Singh. Brandon, thanks for your presentation. I guess one of my questions is, basically, in a nutshell, the province is pretty well putting a blanket around the Golden Horseshoe and basically no growth really outside of that boundary, that blanket that they're putting. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the province is identifying areas where there should be growth and where there shouldn't be growth. So, of course, there's municipalities outside of this greater Golden Horseshoe when you get to London and other places. But especially by having the Greenbelt Plan and Oak Ridges Moraine Acre Escarpment, that shows here's the green area, here's the urban area, here's a bit of an area to expand, and here's where your focus should be, is in your downtowns and your built-up area.
Okay, and that's fine. I believe in that. I believe in the intensification. My concern is this plan itself will basically significantly increase land values for this area and whatever's in the greater Horseshoe. And so what's going to end up happening is there will be a lack of affordability, and as well, I think, too, where our fees and everything else that we do for development will be out of whack compared to what the land prices are. And so it will not be affordable for intensification.
Through the chair, that's an item that the Ontario home building industry and Build and others have pointed out, especially in the Toronto area. They've kind of pointed towards provincial policy having an impact on land values. And of course, there's arguments on both sides that there's many things that impact land values, but perhaps this is one of them.
Okay. I guess my other question is in regards to, on one of the slides was with manufacturing and the lower tier, the region's going to be responsible for what manufacturing is, and that we won't have that much of a role on how we can shape manufacturing. Is that correct?
Through the chair, to clarify, it's a little bit more about what areas are deemed prime employment, what areas are employment, and what areas could change to other uses, that you could have commercial uses maybe, or you could even change, if you've had a large amount of industrial land for years and years and then you don't need as much in the long term, to be able to change even one parcel of land, you have to wait for this comprehensive review. And what the province is now proposing is that only a region could do that. And up to now, a city could do that comprehensive review and look at all of our industrial land.
Okay. Because I do have a concern with that, because I think the way manufacturing and the land uses that we have for manufacturing is transforming, and I think there's significant, there should be like a hybrid of that, and I think we should be still at the table for that and in control rather than the region. And in particular, just this weekend when I went to Fuse Nation was a perfect example of an old manufacturing facility that could be used for other uses, and I don't want to eliminate that that type of use in our community, because I think there's some added value to that. So okay, but in the meantime, anyways, when the time's appropriate, Mr. Chair, I'll move the staff's recommendation.
Great. Councillor Janetsky?
Thank you. Very interesting report. I know you had to respond to the provincial review, and they gave you another job to do and provided a very excellent analysis. I do like the Appendix A that's attached with all the thoughts and questions and comments and issues that you've identified. And I'm not going to address any of them because I think they're all relevant in one way or the other, from having you guys done the research and read the report and then added your input from the meetings you had with your colleagues, etc. A couple of questions that do tie into it. Page 3.7, there's a term that's used, net zero communities. Could you sort of explain what's intended by that?
Essentially, it would be a neutral situation whereby the energy used in an area is equal to the energy that is produced or needed. And so saying, in the past it's been talked about for a building. So you know how there's certain standards such as LEED? You have LEED for design, that there would be a reduction in energy usage with that building, or the techniques of how the building is made. This would apply to an entire neighborhood, an entire community at a larger scale. So essentially what it would mean is that there would be solar panels, there would be possibly district energy, there would be geothermal or other ways, there would be wind power, there would be other ways to generate energy and ways that the community is constructed to reduce how much energy it's using. So that essentially it was neutral, zero.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't see it from that direction, from an energy perspective scenario. When I look at this review by the province, and you look at that map on page 2 that covers the Greater Horseshoe area, it reminds me of reading a document or a book back many years ago on the megalopolis of the New York Eastern States that goes from Boston to New York, Philadelphia, Washington. That whole corridor, how those municipalities have developed, and then how they had to grow and intensify, grow their transit systems and rail systems for getting up and down the coast. And I vision that we would eventually get there as well. I mean, that goes back many years ago when I read this report. Yet when I look at this whole perspective of where we're going, I look at Kitchener and how we fit into this region and fit into this Greater Horseshoe area, and how we looked 50 years ago. Kitchener, how we looked 50 years ago in terms of where were we? I mean, Conestoga Parkway was just starting to be built. 401 just arrived to the doorstep. And we were just a small community. I mean, the region didn't even exist. And where will we be 50 years from now? And how will we look? And how will we fit into this whole Greater Horseshoe area? So when you look at this whole perspective of where we're going, this is sort of addressing that in terms of the beginning steps and phases, because once you take the first steps, those whole buildings and railroad networks and everything else is built, they'll stay there. And the intensification will basically follow hand in hand. And it basically is inevitable. So I see this as big dollar signs. And that's one of the first things I noted on my thing here. Because where's the dollars going to come from? Is this something through the development charges? This will be through taxation from the province? There's nothing is addressed in terms of dollars in your report. Do you have sort of a visual, general answer to that?
Through the chair, I would generally say that when you're talking about the larger regional scale, such as the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the future and growth, that really highlights the importance of the transit infrastructure and other infrastructure to link areas, such as the two-way GO, the future high-speed rail, and other infrastructure improvements. And so the big key is Metrolinx.
But those would be provincial sort of jurisdictional stuff. But there's also reference in terms of this report, the stuff of improvement of our infrastructure, reconstruction issues and intensification. So if we're going to really intensify, maybe our infrastructure is not sized enough sanitary-wise and storm-wise to handle downtown development, that we may have to double the capacity. And I mean, those are big bucks again you're talking. I mean, who's going to pay for all this stuff?
Through the chair, that's why it's these are important questions, and that's a major advantage of having LRT. LRT is one of those major infrastructure investments as to shaping the future growth of our communities into 20, 50 years from now. And that's why it's important to do the parts work that we are, to look at that growth and look at our sanitary capacity, storm sewers, etc. And so that is being confirmed through the parts work, and so far, so good.
Yeah. I see my time's up.
Councillor Galway-Seelock.
Yeah, I want to focus a little bit on the Greenfields area, obviously, with the area that I represent. So it's talking about the increased density targets for Greenfield. And in the one paragraph that you have, it's a planned increase for the region as a whole versus the city, is my gathering. Are we going to get hit harder in Kitchener to reach higher densities because we have more Greenfield than, well, let's say Waterloo? We know Waterloo doesn't have much, if any. I'm not entirely sure on the Cambridge situation, but is that a potential, if it's a regional number, that we're going to be, the region's going to hand us a stronger target because we have to make it up for the rest of the region?
Through the chair, it's a good question and a good point of discussion as we go into the future, and I'm sure it's going to be talked about for the next 5 years. The Greenfield density is a target for a region, and the region can establish a target amongst the 7 municipalities here, which includes the townships. It may or may not relate to the overall quantum of land you have for the Greenfield area, but a little bit more about the context of the situation. And so for Kitchener, it's important because we have more land available. For Waterloo, this issue, in a few years, not as important. So it's important, and it is possible that there could be different targets for the different municipalities. So under the current plan, the province has a 50 persons and jobs per hectare minimum target. And through our region official plan for the urban municipalities, it's 55. So it is a bit higher. And so when we look at implementing the potential 80, what could that mean? That's a good question.
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to keep on our radar and make sure that we keep informed and don't let too much of that happen. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but the Wildflower subdivision, do you know what the density is there? I'm trying to think of like something that we have that's existing that is extremely high. Do you know that number off the top of your head?
Is that the Mattamy one?
Yes, that's the Mattamy subdivision.
It's just on that subdivision alone. Like, it's part of all of Rosenberg, which is planned at minimum 74. Mm-hmm. And so that subdivision would probably, I don't know, that's a good question as to exactly what it is. We would have had that number years ago. It would be, I'll have to get back to you.
That's fine.
Because it does include a little bit of the mixed-use lands along Fisher-Hallman. There is a block or two.
And the reason I'm bringing it up is, and in this context, is you have a lot of you're suggesting a lot of the takeouts within that community. But there's some real life problems that come up when we build communities like that, and I'm picking on them just because they're one of our highest density that I experience as a ward councillor with regards to zero lot lines, with parking, and with that associated density. And I think our comments that need to go forward are need to include not such, a lot of your wording is very high level, but some of those concrete issues that we deal with bylaw when we're building communities of such high density, some of those real life problems that we deal with on an ongoing basis. And that's just the one that I'm currently picking on right now, because it's got a lot of that density. And if we're going to go towards that stronger and have to change some of our policies around Rosenberg in that area, because that's where our area is to grow, that's a huge concern to me. So I think we need to outline some of those in, like, you've got some of the high level stuff, but really bring it down to a level that makes it an everyday situation versus the larger policy that it is. And I think for me, there's one portion of this that's talking about complete communities. And so you want all of those amenities with regards to parks, trails, schools, stormwater management, woodlots. They're saying let's build the complete communities, but yet they're going to pinch them out and make them smaller because of the densities that we're going to have to reach. And I think that's a contradiction. And so I think those are comments that we need to put forward to the province through this consultation process. So I think it'd be interesting and to see if you can get back to us on what the density is in that subdivision. So if members of council want to go out and kind of see what it looks like and what the future could be, it's not going to be 80, I know that, but it's much more dense than I think a lot of, from a housing perspective, than a lot of maybe some of our other areas. Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe there is a different area within the city that's a higher density area, so that we can all kind of see what that looks like, so that we can provide adequate input with regards to that specific recommendation under Greenfield growth. So those are kind of my input towards this. I don't know if you have any comments back. I know my time's up, so.
No, I just suggest through the chair that if the committee is willing and okay with attaching the minutes from today, then I would suggest, for the clerk, that you're highlighting some practical issues on the ground with achieving some of the higher greenfield densities, which include challenges such as on-street parking or appropriate parking provision, how to have an appropriate building form if you have zero lot line development, and other practical considerations as it relates to traffic, etc.
Right. I would just want staff to be able to, from different departments, to be able to elaborate on the short list that I just gave you. So I have no problem with attaching the minutes, but if there's any other of those kind of real life day-to-day that staff from planning or bylaw can provide input, I would encourage that to be included as well.
And Councillor Ioannidis has said he wants to move the motion, so when the time is ready, hopefully he can make that as part of the motion, that the minutes of this meeting be included as comments. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair Singh. So, Brandon, this is a very thorough report. I just have a couple questions about, so I can try to understand the people and jobs per hectare. Are those targets averages of a wider area? Are they meant to be delineated between greenfield, like the average growth of all greenfield in a year, or are they actually looking at per hectare individually?
Through the chair, granted, it is a bit of a funny way to measure density, and it became a challenge for a lot of municipalities as to how to measure density by having persons plus jobs per hectare. Where it applies is that is an average across the entire designated greenfield area of the region. And so we have to look at, in the townships, in their greenfield area, what's an appropriate number? Mm-hmm. And for each municipality, what's an appropriate number? The approach that our council adopted with the official plan and that we've been kind of promoting and using for how we deal with it in Kitchener is that not every single subdivision or phase of a subdivision should achieve that. There's a final phase in Pioneer Tower West, it's the final one, or in certain areas that are not served by transit, that don't have the public service facilities, that have a different condition, maybe even some private services, probably shouldn't be at high densities. But if we're to have and meet that average across the whole area, then some greenfield areas need to have a higher density that's above the 50 or 80, and some then would be allowed to have lower. That's the importance of Kitchener was so well positioned that we actually had greenfield mixed-use nodes pre-zoned like Fairway and Lackner and other places. That's our saving grace. We would have no chance of achieving the target if we didn't have places like that or if we didn't do the Rosenberg plan. And so it does apply for a whole region. We have an approach for our city, so it doesn't have to happen on every parcel. And so, but some have to be higher and some have to be lower. And the mechanics of how you actually calculate it can get quite detailed.
Sure, okay. So, yeah, I'd like to also just agree with Councillor Galloway-Seelock's, stressing that we need to give some concrete examples as to why the diminished role for local municipalities is a bad idea, like why we feel we need to have a strong voice at the table. It's not just because, hey, you're bruising our ego as a local small municipality. It's because we are the ones who have our feet on the streets, as it were, in planning. I just want to know also, if we aren't to meet some of the targets, if they become aggressive targets and we don't grow to the extent that we think we will down the road, what would be the ramifications?
Through the chair, I could maybe postulate a bit more if you were able to specify which of the targets.
Yeah, I don't know, like just the averages of like 60.
Just the growth projection.
The growth projections
the
generally.
right?
And then, so if we had applications that, exceeded or didn't meet the targets, would it mean that we would have to slow down growth? I'm trying to articulate what I mean. So the province is dictating our targets, and if we do not meet those targets, what happens? And I know you want to know what targets I mean, but pick one. I don't know.
Through the chair, it's been a question that many municipalities and folks involved in these matters have been asking since 2006 growth plan, and often joking like, are we going to go to provincial places to grow, jail or something? Is someone going to tell us that we haven't been doing it? The serious answer is the province may be providing financial infrastructure investments, partly based on our intent or achievement of some of these targets. So, for example, the province announcing of the $42 million towards the multimodal hub could partly be related to this, because our area, and Kitchener's demonstrated that through our growth management monitoring report, is that we are on track to achieving the targets, and in some years we have, and we're well positioned, and this council's put forward a framework in our official plan to do it. There's a lot of great things happening here, and so provincial infrastructure is something that we probably wouldn't want to necessarily put too many red flags out, to have too many years and too many times where we're saying, we're not going to achieve it, we're not going to do any of this stuff of provincial policy. I don't think we would want to put that out there. There's many other details, of course, what we could talk about if we don't achieve each of the numerical targets. The challenge about the overall population growth, that's another whole discussion. And I pointed out one item in our report that essentially, when we look at some of the infrastructure needed for growth and how development charges is calculated, it's anchored to a population forecast number that gets allocated within our region and to the different municipalities. And if it's too high, there's a bit of a danger. Maybe we're not collecting the right amount, or we're collecting too less of an amount in terms of the infrastructure for growth, and then maybe we have to delay paying for infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
So two things, just to touch on. So one of the things, obviously, it's more of a reward than penalization or provincial jail that you would be sent to if we didn't meet those targets. And the other is, of course, the fact that developers would have this tool if they're asking for a certain level of intensification and we're not agreeable, and they can use this like the Places to Grow Act at the OMB. So that's where really the big impact will be, that it's a tool for the development community to demand and insist that this municipality continues to meet those targets that have been laid out. So anyways.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Fernandez?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, no. You're coming in for the second time. Councillor Davey hasn't asked this question yet, so if you can bring back in. Councillor Davey?
Thank you. I just had a question regarding what I think is the biggest wild card in the projection. That's the province's inclusion of high-speed rail. Is it common, like in the past, have you seen in a factor like this that could, I guess my understanding is high-speed rail goes through, it's going to be relatively easy to achieve a lot of these targets. If it doesn't, then it's going to be fairly difficult. So I guess well, first of all, is that an accurate assessment?
Through the chair, perhaps the best way to address that is that when that happens, it would be another huge incentive and make it a little bit easier to achieve the provincial targets. Without it, we'll still endeavor to. But with it, it would make it a lot more realistic.
Okay. So I know the province is looking at it, but there's no commitment to do it at this point. Is there a way, I guess, other than attaching the comments here, and unfortunately when I went through the additional comments as provided, I didn't really see much reference specifically to high-speed rail and the importance of that. Is there a way that we can advocate more for that through this process?
Through the chair, I generally was leaving that to committee and council if you wish to find additional ways to help advocate for that. I know that there's been many endeavors in the past to do that. It's just briefly pointed out as the last bullet on 3-15, and then I brought it forward as kind of the main highlight in the text of the report and then on the slide. But I would encourage committee and council to add anything to these minutes and take any additional steps to continue to advocate for it.
Okay, yeah, so just in comment then of this, in feedback, I would indicate that I've been a strong proponent. I think we need a high-speed rail link between here and Toronto in addition to our two-way all-day go progress. But I think that's an absolute requirement for us to achieve this higher intensity. I mean, it's simple to fathom what it means to be 35 minutes away from Toronto, what that means for intensification and business and job growth. So I can't emphasize that portion of this enough, that if the province is looking for us to achieve these targets, we need some solidification of that project.
Mayor Vanovic, have you spoken yet? Or yeah.
Sorry, thank you. And I was just going to respond to that last comment. I mean, once committee and ultimately council deals with this, there's a formal process that staff will forward this information on to the province's ability to input into this. But we will then use that as part of our advocacy meetings, both at AMO, regular meetings with the MPPs, and other meetings that we have from time to time with ministers to make the case for these individual components based on the official position taken by council on these issues. And I share the comments of Councillor Davey with respect to the transportation links. We all know those are absolutely key, not just from a growth management point of view, but also from an economic development point of view. And quite frankly, I think the province and the feds understand that as well. It's just a matter of getting through the process, and specifically on the high speed, it's our understanding that David Collinette will be submitting a report to the Premier by November of this year. And so we'll see what it says at that point in time.
Thank you. That's helpful. I'll just quickly ask my questions as well. And I'm glad to see that as part of the growth projections that high-speed rail is actually commented. And we have to, and on a local level, reiterate that fact. I think this could be a huge, or this direction of growth could be a huge benefit to this community, because it gives us that rationale and argument that we do need to be truly part of the Golden Horseshoe area. And for it to happen, not just in terminology, but to be really connected is through transportation. And the 401 is not a real connectivity. It's through high-speed rail. And I would say even two-way GO is not necessarily an effective way of for commutership. It really needs to be something that's viable and part of new age technology. So that would be my comments as well, that we need to encourage through this process that for us to be able to meet those targets, we need that level of investment between into the corridor. Also, I think it's for us as a reflection as well that not necessarily with the intensification and growth. It would allow for better investments into our infrastructure as well. As we are making these changes, it would allow us to better forecast through our infrastructure spending as opposed to building outward. So this is necessarily a bad thing. Yes, it does cause headaches with a level of intensification going from a target of around 40%. I think we're reaching higher than that and aiming towards 60%. But as staff has already indicated that we're well positioned because of the green space that we have available, that we can better target ourselves. So a couple questions coming. So through this way of projected growth or encouragement, does it seem that some of the commenting will be taken away from the lower municipality and more focused on the region? Is that what you kind of touched on?
To the chair, I don't think necessarily the commenting would be taken away.
Well, reviews and studies. So how the growth plan, how it's strategized at the local level. The emphasis would be from the region as opposed to the lower tier.
From my read, there appears to be more emphasis on regional growth management strategies and dealing with some of the topics that in the past local municipalities have a little bit more of the hands-on experience with.
Okay. My just quick response to that, not all regions are equal. That may work for some, definitely not us, as we're very different. There's a continuation between Kitchener and Waterloo, but again, as a region, I think Kitchener as a municipality is quite different, and we need to have that autonomy at the local level. I'll go to the second round. Councillor Fernandez, you had some more questions and comments. The way we're taking this is obviously this is not necessarily for questions, just as part of the approval. But staff are really looking for comments, so you can formulate your comments as part of your questions as well.
Okay, that's fine. So just going to the concern around the 60% infill, especially in greenfield areas, I have and it speaks also to the item on, protecting what is valuable. And I want to make sure I understand that the comments the staff has already made relate to what I'm talking about. When we've continually seen variances come to the Committee of Adjustment for, I don't know if it's zero lot line, but the side yard setbacks, especially in areas where water quality and quantity are very critical to sustaining creeks like Blair Creek and other wetlands. Is that a comment that needs to be addressed in this planning document, because if they're going to have such intensification that we're going to be seeing no opportunity for infiltration, then we're going to be the undoing of our own aquifers and our own water source.
What I would suggest through the chair is that perhaps a comment that's being raised through you and perhaps other members of committee and council that could be reflected in the minutes is that when the province is establishing minimum density targets, that it's important to ensure that a municipality can still achieve its other objectives, such as water management,
I think that's
transportation considerations, because other things are mentioned about parking, etc.
Mm-hmm. And I think those are really important, because I know that in one of the subdivisions in my ward, that was all part of the criteria. It was an OMB decision, but yet there was some stringent standards around the water infiltration, water quality, quantity. When it talks about the greenfield hydrological features within our new OP, does this project, are we looking at the right guidelines? Is that what the province is looking at? I think that would be under, 3-13.
Through the chair, can you clarify your question?
Yeah, it's one of the bullet points is talking about key hydrological areas and hydrological features. So are the comments here that from staff, are they supporting what the growth plan is or not?
Through the chair, generally, yes. So the province currently, but now proposed, is getting more into water resource systems and water management for very good reasons. Mm-hmm. I think what we're pointing out is that in our area, Waterloo Region, Kitchener, and through our Conservation Authority, we've been practicing these matters for many, many years. And I think we're just recognizing that the rest of the province through this plan is directed to catch up to what we've been doing. However, it seems to be quite angled on just water, and there's a lot, drinking water, and there's a lot more aspects of water management than just that. And so I think what I'm pointing out is that the GRCA and others that are into these terms are just digging into them further to confirm exactly what is this direction and exactly what does it mean for our area. A lot of it appears to be aimed at the rural areas. And that the rules you have within your urban area are the rules that you already have in your urban area.
The other comment I had was related to the climate change initiatives from the province. They're sort of throwing it out to us that we've got to take that into consideration, but are they going to be following up with a little bit of funding here? Because the reality is some of the initiatives are very costly.
Through the chair, that is a very good point. The climate change initiatives, there's a lot happening within the province in different municipalities and different communities, and the implications could be extensive when you dealt with the low-hanging fruit. Like Kitchener's made a lot of progress in the mid-90s, late 90s, 2000s. When it gets time to do the tough stuff, it could get pricey. I believe I saw recently that there is some climate change funding that's upcoming from higher levels of government that could assist with some of these matters.
Okay. My one last question, and anything else I'm going to talk to you about, I'll talk offline. Have you gone to the Environmental Committee and the Cycling Trails Committee with maybe some comments, especially around protecting what is valuable, complete streets, public service facilities? Are you going to our advisory committees asking for some comments around this?
Through the chair, unfortunately, we did not have time to do that. If there's direction, then we could have some commentary with the different groups. We've done our best on behalf of the municipality to have our professionals that are involved in TDM, transportation planning and environmental planning. They've all input into these comments.
I think it's important because all of our advisory committees would have, I believe, some valuable input into the documents, even if it's just reading what the comments are from staff and either being supportive or adding a number of different points of view into the comments that we have in this report. And if it's something that staff has an opportunity to do, I think it's really important. Even though maybe from a general resident's perspective, this may be a document that's a bit tedious to understand, our advisory committees, I think, all have a better understanding of some of the process and some of the things that are happening at the city.
Through the chair, I won't comment on his initial joke that he had at the beginning about advisory committees and planning matters, but in the past, we have, when commenting to the province on legislative changes or policy changes, we have circulated and sent a copy to the advisory committees of what the comments were to the province. If the committee so wishes and directs as part of your resolution, I could do that.
Well, I'd like to add that to
Just
the
a quick
recommendation.
clarification, actually, before we go there. When is the comments due?
The comments are due on October the 31st, so I wouldn't be able to go to all the committees.
Exactly. Well,
but in the
unless
past,
there
we've
was
sent it.
Yeah, most likely you would be able to meet most, the ones that meet on a monthly basis at least.
Through the chair, I would not be able to meet at the advisory committees. Unfortunately, the schedules are pretty booked for myself. But like I said before,
but at least the report could be circulated to the advisory committee with comment saying request for feedback, right?
if the committee wishes, we could do that. In the past, we've circulated to them so that the advisory committees are aware of the comments that city staff are making. And if they wish further follow-up, then we would go and have a discussion with them.
Mr. Wilmer, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly one of the lessons we've learned through our community engagement strategy is that when we're engaging the advisory committees, we should do it early in the process. That if it's tacked on at the end and seems kind of rushed, they certainly get the sense that it's an afterthought or that their input can't be meaningfully included. So I think in this case, as Mr. Sloan has said, there simply wasn't time to do it. And given the highly technical nature of the document, we've made the decision that in this case it really was better for the professionals involved to work with their colleagues and to put together a technical document. So I think, as Mr. Sloan has suggested, certainly we can circulate the document to them for information, but I think that it probably would be not well received by the advisory committees themselves if we sort of rush things and say, here it is, but we need your comments back because we've got less than a month.
Yeah, that's sage advice. Now, I'm guessing this is just the onset. There will be other opportunities for comments as well, or?
To be determined.
To be determined. Well, hopefully, staff will take feedback from the committee that going forward, if there is an opportunity, that we try to do that in advance and include that as part of the strategy. We've gone through second set of questions for comments. Councillor Innes, you are moving the motion, and with the amendment that the minutes of the meeting be included, and minutes from council meeting as well.
Yes, I would want those that input involved with the report. But just to make this short, I mean, I really believe in the way the province is going with the growth plan within the Golden Horseshoe. But I do have some significant concerns with regards to how this is going to be achieved and wanting to have that balance with our community needs, and such as, our community needs is with heritage, natural heritage landscapes, where we want to have environmental protection and, not have any lot separation, to have bigger lot separations. Those are just some of the things I heard and that came to my mind. And, I think when you have those, it'll be rather difficult for us as a community to intensify when you have a lot of restrictions. And I think that could derail the province's growth strategy if we don't have something like high-speed rail, which I think is something that I'm just glad communicated by a lot of my colleagues here. And I think it is the driving force in my mind that will be able to achieve these lofty goals.
I would agree. There's no other comments. Okay. I was going to start making mine. That's why I said there's no other comments in case somebody else wanted to ring in. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you for that opportunity. You know, I just want to quickly mention that I fully appreciate what the CAO is saying, that, you know, when citizens advisory committees are asked to comment on something but given a really tight timeline, if it's a city initiative that started months and months ahead of time, that doesn't feel good, I'm sure, to the residents. But in this case, I think that if we're directing staff to send this report out with staff's comments to citizens advisory committees that are relevant, then I think that it's only fair if we, you know, give somebody who happens to put in hours of time to read and understand, and, you know, if they have a couple additional comments, I think that should also be pointed out, that that's welcome. And you know, it's up to Brandon and his team to decide what gets included, because he has the wider scope. But I really don't think that this is a case where we need to just inform the citizens committees and not welcome any kind of feedback. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, in reading through the comments that staff has put forward to the province, I think there's some very valuable comments and very valuable input from our staff that needs to be considered, and especially things around natural heritage features, greenfield sites, buffer areas, water quality quantity, making sure that we still have a very strong opportunity to respond. I don't want to see that being taken out of our hands. Stormwater management is another issue of great concern, but also it's very important to see that the province is looking at our transportation and our planning for transportation for future, whether it's high-speed rail or opportunities for more cycling and trail. I think those are all very vital to how our city will become a more walkable and complete city. So I really appreciate the detailed appendix that's here, because I think that it speaks to a lot of the concerns that I often raise. And if there is other opportunities for either council or members of the public in terms of our advisory committees to have input on this, maybe we can figure out how to do that. Maybe this is not the right report for them, but something that's focused. But that would have to be able to be done by staff in a manner that works for their schedule, but also works for the schedule of each advisory committee, because each advisory committee has their own specific interest and their own specific challenges that they're interested in, this document may need to drill down to each of those specific areas. That may take an awful lot of work from staff's perspective. So I appreciate very much the details in here. It takes a little bit of wading through, but that's okay. I'm fine with that. Thanks.
Yeah, quickly, it's my opinion that I think we should welcome this direction that the province is heading, simply because compared to many other municipalities, we're well poised with stormwater management, with transportation LRT investment that's already been decided for, with our experience that we've have had with the Rosenberg secondary plan, and the available green space that's within our city boundaries. So compared to most, I think we're well positioned to be able to accommodate the targets that are in place that the province seems to be heading. And I think that only makes a rational case that this community needs to be better connected to the larger metropolitan area as Toronto and the GTA, and with better connectivity and transportation. I think that's where really, if the province is heading in this direction and targets for growth and intensification, it needs to be done with significant, not just some, but significant investment into transportation, amongst other things as well, simply because municipality like ourselves has already taken very responsible steps in implementing some of the things that are necessary to be able to achieve these targets ourselves, but to be able to do it well and to be able to do it right and forward, the province needs to invest themselves, and a big component of that needs to be in water conservation, as well as, of course, for transportation infrastructure. With that, the item has been, as amended, moved by Councillor Ioannidis. All those in favor? Recorded vote, anyone? Or no? Okay. Recorded vote? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Just a quick minute before the next item. We'll take a quick break. Let's bring the meeting to order as the last item. So this is a deferred item from before the Interior Municipal Board jurisdiction, deferred from February 22nd council meeting. There is a staff suggested motion as well, or recommendation. I will open up the floor to questions. Councilor Fernandez.
So I'd like to, I really don't have any questions, but I would like to move the motion with the additional wording that I circulated to council and to staff. And
Councilor Fernandez, are you moving the staff recommendation?
I am.
Can the clerk just put that up? Thank you. Just bring it down a little bit. No, that's not the staff one. It's this one.
But you can include both of them, Daphne, if possible.
Let's look at this. If this is what you're moving, then you can add further to, right, as an amendment.
Right, great. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, we can read it. It's perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right.
Sorry.
So,
I'll start the time now.
yes, so I'd like to move this motion as put forward by staff, but I'd like to add the wording after the provision by staff of a draft response to the consultation paper, and that the following statements be included in the resolution, and that is that the province should generally strengthen the degree of regard that the Ontario Municipal Board must show to the provincial policy and to decisions made by local council, and that the province should review the manner in which appeals are heard by the Ontario Municipal Board with a view to requiring that the norm should be for appeals to be heard in the same manner as appeals are heard by the courts as a trial is de novo. And I just want to speak to the reasons that I'm adding these two. I think both of them are fairly general concepts and principles that I would hope that council could support and would give the province a sense of where we would like to see their consultation paper go. And I think it's not very detailed. It only makes sort of a general consensus. I understand that saying that hearings should be heard in the same manner as courts do, but and to eliminate the whole idea that trials de novo, that they will take into consideration what has happened before in the planning department and with councils. But I think that is an important part of what their consultation needs to be. So that's why I'm adding it to it. I'm hoping that there is an appetite from council to give some kind of direction to the province of where we're thinking, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Let's open it up for questions on the motion. Councillor Etherington?
No, I just wanted to ask if we could vote separately on the two.
Yes, of course, that's how it would be. It's not one motion, it's a motion and then amendment on the addition. So, Mayor Vivinovic.
Well, thank you. And I guess I'm struggling a little bit with the additional motion that's being proposed, the amendment. I think the whole point of deferring this issue is for us to be in receipt of the consultation paper and have staff have an opportunity to review that and then make a series of recommendations, whereas we can look at that consultation paper in conjunction with the work that AMO has done, in conjunction with the Aurora motion, which originally was deferred to this date. And the motion that's being proposed there starts taking things into a direction that we may or may not agree with. But I don't think today's the day that we should be having that debate. I think the appropriate thing to do is to have on the table the benefit of the actual consultation paper for us to respond to, and then deal with it going forward. So I will be supporting the original recommendation, but not the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh?
Yeah, well, I would just, further to that, I mean, I agree in principle with Councillor Fernandez's amendment. I really, I want to be able to support it, but should it be defeated today, I would be concerned that then if we choose to add the notions that are included in this amendment in our actual official feedback that we provide once the consultation paper is released, that we would be prevented from doing so if this motion were denied. So
through committee clarification.
Oh, through committee.
If something
right.
fails through committee, it still can be brought through into council, correct?
Yes, that's true. Okay. So I mean, if this fails in committee, then ostensibly we could defer it in council. But I would move to defer this amendment until such time as we provide feedback. Unless Councillor Fernandez can explain why we need to put this rush this through when we are waiting for the consultation paper to provide feedback in due process.
Yeah, of course.
So it's not a matter of rushing it through. We've already deferred it from February. Really, I think it's important for us to at least send some comments to the province. We are a large community. We have a lot of dialogue going on with the province about a variety of issues. And why not be very clear that we do feel that we have to have a review related to generally strengthen the degree of regard to what our local councils do, what our planning department does when they spend years putting together our OP. So if we don't at least say in your consultation paper, take a look at those things, then they won't do that. I don't see any harm in giving some kind of direction or some kind of sense of how we as a community feel the OMB reform should happen. There are many other communities that have done that or more.
Councillor Marsh, you have a few more minutes. If you rung back in, did you want to make comment afterwards? Or? Okay. Mayor Vojinovic?
Well,
you did. Your mic was still on, but I think you disconnected and connected again. So that's why I was asking. But you can ring back in, of course. Of course, I can't. Okay, you've done. Okay. Yeah. I
just turned it off. I try not to take too much time. So but I did turn it off too quickly this time.
Yeah.
If the purpose of this amendment is actually to provide feedback to the province in advance of their consultation paper, to ask them in their consultation paper to include these provisions, I think that the amendment should say so, and then I would support it. But if it doesn't, I feel like this is just trying to give feedback generally to the province in the wrong order. I think that we need to follow their process, and yes, I agree they should have these things in the consultation paper. If they don't, we can certainly provide the feedback in addition to whatever they're asking. But I don't think I can support it as it is. So thank you.
Okay. Mayor Vojinovic?
Thank you. And again, I'm struggling a little bit. I'm very supportive of doing a review of the OMB, looking at what the mechanisms are that exist now, and seeing how they need to be changed to move things forward. I think we need to have the benefit of information and a review from our staff, who are the professionals that deal with these issues, and put wording before us for us to consider as part of our position, much like we did with the report that we just finished reviewing in terms of the growth management piece. There is no rush here, and the reality is that we may want to be supportive of the wording that's come out of the working group, but there's also the reality that AMO is looking at this issue separately, and AMO is the organization that represents all local governments. And secondly, in addition to AMO, we know that the regions, and I've raised this before, have gotten some professional expertise to provide some suggestions as well. And that information will presumably be available when it's completed. and we can consider that in our deliberations as well. So, Mr. Chair, I really think the appropriate action is the deferral motion, and that's what we should be focusing on today. And in fact, I'm not sure procedurally if, in fact, the deferral motion actually takes precedence, or how we should be dealing with these additional pieces.
Well, the way I saw it, the deferral motion was moved, and then the extra addition is an amendment. So, but I will look at the clerk to get clarity. Yeah.
Just to clarify through you, Mr. Chair, that I'm sorry. Just to clarify through you, Mr. Chair, that the deferral motion would take precedence, and that there cannot be an amendment to a deferral motion. So it would seem...
So that's a separate motion then?
Well, it was my understanding that Councillor Fernandez was bringing forward the original deferral motion with the additional clauses. So rather than take it as two separate motions, that would
These are contrary.
That's
why.
My input.
So because they're contrary, they're two separate motions then. And then we're taking the deferral motion as one. And then we would be voting on the second part?
My understanding was that Councillor Fernandez was bringing forward the deferral with the two additional clauses, so that even if it were to be contrary, you would, and as requested by, I think it was Councillor Etherington, to have them voted separately, Councillor Fernandez could still bring forward the last two clauses at an additional time when the paper was brought forward.
Yes, no, we get that.
Yeah, that's
but
fine.
they could be voted on separately though, right?
You've accepted the motions,
Yeah.
so I would say yes.
Okay, all right. So again, we have opportunity to pick and choose of which we want to support. And as Councillor Etherington has already asked for those two sections to be voted separately. So, go ahead.
But my point is that I think those last two clauses should be deferred as well. And so, like, all of this whole issue should be deferred, not just the original motion from Aurora, so that we have the benefit of the original report, the report that's going to come from the province, and all of the additional information that staff will consider, and bring a draft response to the consultation paper back to us. And these principles should be looked at as part of that.
I agree with you, but the way it's being shown on here...
Okay, so then can I move deferral of this?
Yes.
This whole issue?
Yes.
Okay, then I will move deferral of the last two clauses. You did. Okay.
Sure. No, you mentioned that if it were to be deferred or defeated, that it would be a problem, but you're right. You did suggest that the right course may be a deferral, so you could do that if you wanted to. Sure.
Yeah, I'll second it then.
Okay. So it's deferred by you. Okay. There's still more comments. Councillor Galloway-Sealock.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to say that I think the fact that the province is looking at the OMB and possible reform and bringing forward a consultation paper and giving us an opportunity at that time to be able to have a thorough input process is great. I think it's a win for all municipalities that they're even looking at this, and they're looking at a time frame of actually having legislation for, I think the report said June or sometime in early spring of 2017. And so I think that that's really encouraging news, and I think we just have to wait for our right time to provide that input that we want to, as our municipality and our experiences, to assist in that direction moving forward. So I think the motion that's being brought forward with regards to coming back once we have that consultation paper is the right action to take, and looking at it holistically so we can give our feedback together, not in pieces. So I will support the motion to defer, and also the separate clauses, the motion to defer.
Thank you. Councillor Etherington.
Exactly the same, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, I'll support both as long as they are deferrals. I'm as impatient with this ongoing issue and as frustrated as Councillor Fernandez. But I also think that the provincial government has finally woken up to the fact that the OMB is in dire need of extensive reform. And I think it's time the board showed more confidence and respect for what, in my opinion, are well-researched decisions made by local staff and councillors who, with valuable knowledge, local knowledge, are surely the people and the experts on development of their own municipalities. So, but I don't want to see us jump the gun. I want to see what's happening at the province. So I would support deferral of both of these.
Thank you. There are no other comments, so I'll make my own. Simply, even though the second portion does say amendment to the deferral, I think that this is a very contrary motion. That's why I saw it as a separate motion to begin with. As the initial motion says, whereas the consultation paper has not yet been released. Simply speaking to that we have to wait before we add the additional advocacy component, and the later 2 points really are formulating an opinion as to the advocacy, and I think there is still time to wait for that until we have more clarity as to where the direction and that the province is heading as to the OMB reform. But I think that's a suggestion, and go forward to defer the later points, and then at that point review and see what the suggested terminology is put forward, how it correlates to what the province has in mind as to the reform would be better suited. So I will support both deferrals on both sections. Recorded vote. I'll take the deferral on the main motion first. So, yeah. So vote when ready. All in favor? Oh, unanimous, okay. And second, recorded vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And that too carries. And that is the last item for discussion. Meeting adjourned.